or not, we don't cut off words of wisdom from yet another fantastic guest who I'm proud to talk to. We are talking today with Mina Elias from Trivium Group and MMA Nutrition, so another one of our overachievers here. And we're talking about remote hiring and remote managing, which is one of those things that everyone's obsessed with, theoretically doing. And then when they try and do it, it turns out it's a little bit harder than it might seem on paper. And so, great topic. First of all, Mina, thanks for joining with us live. Great to have you with us. Where are you coming to us from today?
From sunny Los Angeles. It's beautiful out here. The weather is very nice, and I'm looking forward to the weekend. We have a pool party planned, so I'm excited.
Wow. Proper California, Southern California lifestyle going on there. Well, folks, if you are listening or watching and want to have the South Cal lifestyle, hey, you may be watching from California. Well, first of all, let us know in the comments if you're watching live on the replay. And secondly, do ask any questions you've got of Mina. As you'll discover, he's been hiring people at a great rate of knots. So it's getting very practical hands-on experience of the bumps and also the great upsides of hiring remotely. So do interact with us there. So that's my nod towards interactivity and social media. But really, I'm a podcasting guy, so we're going to record a podcast now, if that's okay. Let's do this thing. Here we go. Ladles and jelly spoons, boys and girls, welcome back to the 10K Collective podcast, the place to be for 6, 7, and 8-figure Amazon sellers. Today, we're talking with a great success in that arena, Mina Elias. He founded MMA Nutrition, an electrolyte supplement brand, but he's since gone to found the Trivium Group and helps a lot of other sellers as well. And today we're talking about hiring remotely, and that's something that Mina's been doing a huge amount. Even since we did our preparatory call a few weeks ago, his team has grown by quite a percentage, over 10% by my reckoning. So Mina, welcome back to the show, man. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to share this. I know it's a huge like a mystery and difficult piece of everyone's business. I really don't understand how people you know what, the best way to say this is, when I was in my 9 to 5, I wish I knew about this, because I wish I would have hired someone, paid them like 600 $700 a month to do a lot of the dirty work, and instead of working 40 hours a week, I would have been able to put 20 hours a week and then chill, because I have someone assisting me for a fraction of my salary. So very important part. I don't know how I would do anything without hiring like good people, and now that I do have amazing people around me, I really look and I'm like, wow, like this is all thanks to them. It's I'm the orchestrator, but then it's like the people who are moving the parts. It's not me anymore. I'm not in the business anymore.
Excellent. So I guess if you wanted to summarize the why does this matter, why should it even bother, it sounds like what other people are getting things done for you. You're working fewer hours. What is the outcome have been for you as a business owner so far of hiring remotely?
Well, I was at dinner. We were at a double date like 2 days ago with my girlfriend's friend and her boyfriend, and we were talking. And he works in a physical business where he has to show up every single day. I was like, "How's your weekly routine?" He's like asking me how his weekly routine. And then he was telling me, he has to show up he has to work Saturdays, he has to do all this stuff. And I was wondering, why don't you just hire like a project manager? And the resistance was very high, because I think he thought that someone wouldn't be able to do what he's doing. And so the number one thing that hiring has allowed me to do is completely buy my back my time. And so I'm no longer required to work. I'm required to work if I want to grow the business. I'm not required to work, I'm required to work if I want to enhance the business, innovate, but I'm not required to work to make things continue to move on their own. They're now moving on their own. And that took me from working in the business and being an employee of the business to now no longer being an employee of the business. The company is completely sellable. If I could just hand it off to someone, and they would just have to kind of orchestrate the team, but the team knows exactly what they're doing. Sales will continue to grow because we have standardized methods for sales and all of this stuff. And so number one, it allows you to buy back your time, and number two, it allows you to become a sellable business. If you're an Amazon seller, it might be a little bit different. You can sell your account. But if you're outside of an Amazon business and you really want to sell a business, it needs to be able to run without you, or else, why would they buy it? They would be like, you could just leave us and it all goes down the drain.
Yeah, good point. And Yeah, I think really it's one of those oft talked about and not so often implemented things that I see people working on, not in the business. It's a lot harder to do than people say. So if, hiring people is the main way to get that done, then let's get into how do we hire. So remote hiring is what we're talking about. So let's define it first of all. I presume that you guys mostly would be hiring people in, say, the Philippines and other places like that, and you're based somewhere in the States. So is that accurate? Is that what it means for you?
Yeah, remote hiring for me is like labor arbitrage, which is basically I'm collecting money from US residents for whatever service or product that I have, but I'm fulfilling everything through people living in other countries. Mainly my entire team is in Eastern Europe. I have a few people in the Philippines, but the main team is in Eastern Europe. And instead of one person over there, let's say I pay them $1,000, $1,200 a month, that same person over here will be paid a minimum of a $5,000 or $6,000 a month salary. And so the fact that I'm able to hire that person to get the same amount of work done to a certain degree, right, very very close to what you would get done in the US with the fraction of the cost, it's not just good for me for my profits, it's also good for the person who's buying. So there's other agencies that charge 5,000 starting, and we charge 2,000 starting. And the reason we're able to do that is because we have, the team. We don't have to pay the team as much. If I had to pay everyone in the US, it would be a lot more expensive. And so maybe it's not for everyone. If you're working with enterprise level and they want to see constant meetings and they want people from America, maybe that's not for you. But if you're serving 6-7 figure sellers, or if you're a brand, if you're like a brand like my brand was, and you don't have that much cash flow, that much capital, and you just kind of want to build things up and reinvest into the business instead of hiring, what's the minimum that you're going to hire someone in the US? $5,000, $6,000. It's a lot harsher on your bank account than if you just hire someone for $800 who can do a ton of the admin work that you have on your plate. So you're focused on doing other things, growing the business by at least $1,000, $2,000 more a month, taking a portion of that, hiring someone else to do more things, buying back your time, scaling your operations, and just continuing that path.
Excellent. So obviously, one thing that strikes me, let's talk about the affordability thing first of all for this, because it strikes me that e-commerce and agency models are a bit different. We don't want to delve too much into the agency side because I think it's really e-commerce sellers that we're here to serve, but the profit margins are very different, aren't they? So I guess you have much more of an overhead-based expense structure and not very much direct costs in an agency or service model generally. Even if you ran a management consultancy, I guess it would be similar, right? But with an e-commerce model, obviously a lot of the costs, particularly if you don't have big offices or a legacy business or warehouse or whatever, is mostly cost of goods sold, so direct costs, right? So how do we get to the point where an e-commerce business can afford to hire somebody? Is the first question, I guess. It's another mental barrier to doing it. Apart from this is going to be difficult, it's can I afford it?
Yeah. I think the first step to can I afford this is, if you are not able to generate some level of profits in the business to afford $1,000 a month, or giving like $600 a month to an overseas employee, then you probably should stay in the business. You should stay working on the business, or in the business until you figure things out, because it might be premature. So if you're still at a zero profit level, I wouldn't say do it. Now, if you are a full-time employee or something of a company, and Amazon is your side thing, and you're trying to get it off the ground, then take some of your salary and put it towards that employee. Because you probably, when I was building my business, MMA Nutrition, I was putting in 50 hours a week at the office, and then I was putting at least another 30 hours a week outside of the office, 20 to 30 hours a week on MMA Nutrition. And I could have been able to buy back a lot of my time if I took a fraction of my salary, $600, $700 a month, and put it towards an employee who was working 40 hours a week on my business, everything that I needed to get done. If it's Amazon, it can be PPC, it can be reaching out to influencers, it can be whatever, managing, like if I'm going to talk to a bunch of people so they can get reviews, maybe managing that process, whatever it is. But it would buy back a lot of my time. And that's the goal, is if I'm going to spend 10 hours on something, I want to build a system that I can eventually delegate, give it to someone else who costs a lot less. Because let's say I cost $35 an hour, right? Very, very cheap. If I'm making $70,000 a year as a salary, I cost $35 an hour. This employee costs four. So I want to give that employee a 4 hour, $4 an hour task, and then put something else that's $35 an hour task, which is maybe figure out this thing in the business, figure out supply chain in the business. Okay, I build a system, I figure it out, and then I delegate it to someone who's $4 an hour. And that person is working 40 hours a week. So even if they're half as efficient as you, because you're the business owner, you're very smart, you're an entrepreneur, you're amazing. Then you're saving 20 hours. Okay, even if they're 25% you're as good as you're saving 10 hours.
Yeah,
Who
you
doesn't
got
want to
to.
save? Who doesn't want to save 10 hours a week?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
I
and
would
I
love.
think that's the thing that people get. I think you put your finger on a really important point that they probably will be less good than you. In my experience, if you're not amazing at recruiting and you're not amazing at managing, I do believe that some of the people I've hired sometimes for some tasks have been like only 25% as efficient as me, but it's $4 an hour. So that's 4x. Okay, so do I value my time at $16 an hour? No, of course not, because I'd go broke trying to live in London on $16 an hour. So yes, you're absolutely right. The other thing that I listened to Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. I've had it on my bedside table for 3 years as a sort of guilt book because it's an e-commerce story, and I thought, oh, I must read this. But I had a resistance because I thought it would be boring and corporate. I was utterly wrong. It's a fantastic story, but it's all about the startup phase, really. And the guy who founded it, Phil Knight, had a job. Even though he had one or two full-time employees working for Nike, he actually kept his day job for years, and which kind of blew my mind until I thought, well, actually, he needed to put cash into the business, but also he needs to enable the business to pay other people's salaries. So he was not so bothered about being in the business the whole time, it was so interesting to me. So there you go. It's doable. It's not just an e-commerce idea. It's not just a new thing. So look, let's get into the nuts and bolts. How do you even begin to go about this? Assuming that you can afford to pay somebody $4 an hour for, would you go straight into hiring full time in one go? Would you go part time? What's the sort of first approach?
So the first thing that precedes any hiring is, and I made this a mistake. The first person I ever hired, I brought them in, and then I started giving them things to do, and it was very inefficient. There was no standard. I was always unhappy. I ended up firing that person. It was a mistake, and the mistake was mine, not that person's mistake, because I had no systems. So what I did was I put a log next to my desk, and then every single task that I did for the next 2 weeks, I documented it. I documented every single thing that I did. And after 2 weeks, I put it in a spreadsheet, I prioritized it. And then I had a list of, the most important things Mina can only do, all the way down to things that a VA can do, essentially. And so once I had that list, I went through the bottom, starting from the least priority, and I created a video or a standard operating procedure recording showing exactly what that person should do. So if I say, hey, I want you to upload a picture to Instagram, this is the exact steps. If you watch this and you copy me, you're good to go. And I started that way. I created a standard operating procedure for all of these things that I was doing on a day-to-day basis. And then I went to hire someone. So the hiring process for me, I have a slightly different hiring process. I like to test people, and I think resumes and all of that stuff is bullshit. I forged my resume in the past. I've changed my resume so that it can match the job more. So I like to test people. What I do is, first I have a job description, and at the bottom of the job description is 3 questions. I ask you to reply to my email with the subject being, I want to work for you, open in quotations, the name of Performance Nut Butter founder. And that's my friend's company. They have to do some research. They have to figure out who that is, but that eliminates any of the apply for no reason kind of people. The second and the third one are 2 simple questions that you need to include in the email. One of them shows me how good your English is. The other one shows me how intelligent you are. Simple questions. But it's just can you figure things out? Then once I get there, I filter anyone who didn't answer those questions correctly, and I'm left with maybe 10% of the people who applied actually being qualified applicants. The second step is I have a test, and the test is a 5-question test. It might take you an hour to do, but to me, I'm like, if you really care and if you really want to get this job, and I am such a great boss, I give a lot of time off, at least 5-6 weeks a year, paid time off, unlimited sick time, a lot of benefits, very frequent raises, pay per performance. So if you tell me, Mina, I want to, get paid an additional X amount, can I do this to achieve that? I'm very, very flexible. No, like flexible working hours, all that stuff. And if you are not willing to just spend an hour to test, then I don't think you're the right fit. I need people who are like, going to be diehard in the company. The test is 5 questions, and it's usually 5 questions that are related to the role, and it shows me how you think. So a lot of times I'll include things that are like mistakes, and I'll say like, I want you to find 3 bicycle shops in New York City that also have like, a juice bar next to them or something like that. And a lot of people will say, hey, like, some people will just put in whatever. And some people will say, hey, I looked at this, I looked at the juice bars, I looked at that, and I found that this shop doesn't have a juice bar inside it, but it has a juice bar in the next block. Is that okay? And I'm like, okay, these are people that can think. The whole entire test is screen recorded. You can use a software like HireVue, HireVue. That can basically have the test live in there, and then they can log in, and as soon as they log in, it shows them the test and starts recording them, and they can't pause or anything. So you see them live how they behave. And then I look through the tests, and the best test, I interview that person one final time. I also love to do the personalities test. I think if no one is doing the 16 personality, if someone is not doing the 16 personalities test, I highly recommend you look into it, because it really translates into, if this is a job like that's a routine, blah 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 blah, you don't want the protagonist, you don't want an executive, you don't want a commander, because they're going to get bored. You don't want someone like me doing a mundane task, because I'm just going to be like, wow, like this is so boring, like I'm sick and tired of this, like I'm just like itching to get out. But if you tell me, Mina, here's a 1,000 problems, we want you to solve them, I'm like, dude, I love this. Like, let's jump into the problems, let's solve one by one, let's work with people, things like that. So understanding the personality is very important. But that's my hiring process. My hiring process is also like a funnel, and the same way that you would advertise your business on Facebook, on Google, whatever, I'm trying to capture applicants from as many places as possible. So we used to need one person here, one person there. Now, in July and August alone, we're going to hire 11 people. At least, I mean, there might be even more. But to get to that level of getting applicants, if I hired 11 people, that means I had maybe 50 people take a test. And if I had 50 people take a test, that means I have like 200 people, decent people that have applied. And now, so I have to build a funnel the same way that I would build it for like clients for my business or whatever. I have different job boards, and I have different versions of the job and I'm split testing. So I'm posting in different places. I'm seeing how many applications I'm getting. I'm changing the word. I'm changing the title. We used to mention like PPC, and I think it threw off a lot of people. So we started mentioning data analyst, and we started mentioning data engineer, and like we changed the words to like where it wouldn't really make a huge difference, because who cares what the title is, right? At the end of the day, you're going to do the same work in the office. But we started split testing, and now we have a funnel, and people see the job applications, the job description in different job boards, and we get different applicants, and we rotate, and we look at which one gets the most qualified applicants. We see which like job board or whatever gets us the best qualified hires, and so it became a system.
Wow, amazing! I'm very impressed. I think you got an extreme structure. I'm glad to hear that you're human and sort of messed it up the first time. You brought somebody in, gave them random things to do. So it sounds like you've gone the absolute opposite of that. Obviously, you've now created a real system of systems, or a real machine, if you like, and I can see why you could begin to think about being able to walk away from this process and be able to do that, leave it to itself. But between your initial poor attempt and this incredible machine, how did you go about going from that first poor attempt to sort of creating this? What's the sort of mini simple version for somebody who's hiring their first remote worker or two? Let's say a solopreneur, to keep it simple, because many people are in that boat, and they're making their first remote hire, or maybe they've hired one person, it didn't work out so well, and they're on to their second or third hire now. What's the simple version of what you've been doing?
The simple version is make that list, prioritize it, create the videos, because you need that, or else anything that you give to anyone is just, they're not going to do it well. Then from there, figure out what's like the most common thing in your list. Is it like a social media thing, whatever? Just, try and get something, and then go and find some other company's job descriptions, pull from that and make a Frankenstein your own job description, compiled of other people's job descriptions, and then pick one job board. Onlinejobs.ph for the Philippines. You can use the LinkedIn if you want, and then just choose the location. Rabota if you're looking for Eastern Europe, and then jobrack.eu, also same thing. Just pick one and focus there. Put the application in. Get, like I said, 3 questions, so that anyone who doesn't answer them, you immediately disqualify them, so you don't waste your time. And then pick 5 tasks and create 5 simple questions, and that's it. And start collecting. If you notice that the applications that you're not getting a lot of hits, maybe change the title. Again, it's like, it's split testing an ad. Is the copy bad? Is the image bad? Maybe your description was just in words. Maybe try adding some creative stuff in there, see what happens. But that's it. That's how I would say. Once you make a decision and hire someone, then just tell them, listen, watch this first video that I created, watch it. Okay, implement that video, implement it, make sure that they know how to implement it well. Okay, good. You understand how to implement it. You're now going to graduate to the next SOP, and you give them the next SOP. And you're literally, when you bring someone on, you just want to give them one thing at a time. Even my managers, I hired someone for like over 100 grand a year salary, and I told her, for the first week, I only want you to do this one thing. She's like, I'm ready to take on. I'm like, I understand that you're ready and you're very enthusiastic, but what's happened is, when I throw too much at one person at once, everything becomes shit. So I like to just one thing, master it, tell me you're good, prove to me that you know how to do this very, very well according to the company standards, and then I'll give you a second thing. And then before you know it, as you give them one thing and then the next and then the next, all of the things they used to do, they can do. And your goal as a solopreneur is to create a digital copy of your brain and of your procedures. Take your brain, put it on the computer in the form of very small digestible videos, so that when someone comes in, you can literally download your brain into theirs by having them watch all of those videos one at a time, mastering each one.
Nice. Well, I have to say that I think I probably succeeded in downloading my brain in some ways, and that may explain why some of my remote management has been so bad, because I have sort of artistic type brain that goes all over the place sometimes. But joking apart, I guess that as long as you structure things in an intelligent way, and done the job descriptions from other people and things like that, you've got a half chance. And I've got to say as well that I fall into this trap, and I don't think I'm alone here, of giving somebody 15 different tasks to do in one go, and I can back you 100% on the fact that it does not work very well. I'm gradually learning. I've gone from give them 4 different mini roles and 20 tasks in each role to give them 2 roles, like general virtual assistant and podcast assistant, I'm thinking of particularly, for example, and then try and only demand 4 things of them in 1 week. And I'm gradually learning. So you obviously realize this fully and properly, so that's really great advice. What else? We're going to talk about remote management in a separate podcast, because I think that's a separate thing from finding and hiring people.
Yeah.
What other one main thing, if I had to say one single thing about hiring remotely that we haven't covered, what would that be? What would that advice be to somebody doing it for the first or the second time?
I'm glad you brought it up. It's not going to be easy, so don't get discouraged if you go through 20 or 30 or 50 applicants and they're all bad. If you're going through 100, 200 applicants and they're all bad, maybe there's an issue. But unless you've hit 100 applicants and they're all bad, I wouldn't worry. I used to think like, man, I put a job application out there, I only got 3 hits, all of them suck, like what's going on? I mean, there is a huge demand on the external, outside of the US and UK population, to hire. So a lot of people are getting hit up in a lot of different places. Definitely, try different job boards and don't get discouraged. Then the one final thing I'll say is, if you can afford it, use a good headhunter. So I have someone from the Philippines, Multiply Me, MII, and I don't know if you've used them, Michael, but I wanted to hire a manager. I just didn't know where to start because this wasn't going to be a person that I was just going to start delegating SOPs to. I needed someone who can really, manage for me. And they're a headhunter. They know how to figure this out. They went, they found her. And I had actually 4 really bad interviews with different people. And I was kind of like, oh man, like I used the headhunter. And then on the 5th one, I was so blown away. Immediately the next day I made her an offer, and she's been critical. I think she's like there's only 2 people in my company like under me, directly under me. She's one of them, and she's incredible. Like my life has been 10,000 times better ever since I hired her. So the point is, just don't get discouraged. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of rejecting people, and hire very slowly and then fire very fast. Of course, you've heard this before. Firing fast firing slow. I'm getting confused. Firing slow will cause your company to suffer. So, and this happened to me because I, as a normal person, wasn't so cold-blooded like I am now. Now I just, if I see a mistake or whatever happen a couple of times, I'm like, okay, thank you very much. This is your last day. We pay them a severance and everything. But if back in the day I was just too soft and I didn't want to kind of tell someone like, hey, like you're no longer working in the company. And I know it's tough, but it will bring you and your team and your company down if you keep, those bad apples there. And then hiring slow, there is no rush, and if you're not 100% convinced that, like if it's not a fuck yes, it's a fuck no, like that saying basically. But for hiring, if it's really not a very good employee, I wouldn't hire them, because it's going to cost you more than it's going to cost you your time. It's going to cost you a lot of pain and a lot of waste. So I wouldn't hire someone unless I'm 100% sure.
Great advice. And by the way, yeah, a couple of good references there. So there's the Derek Sivers book of that name. I think it's called Hell Yeah or No, because he wanted to get it published in America. And Multiply Me's, yeah, super smart people. I spoke to Yoni, who I believe is the CEO and co-founder, a
Yeah.
couple of years ago at Mao, and they were scaling stupidly fast. I think they hired like 100 people in a year even then. So they're very, very smart people. And yeah, I can back the fact that Yoni certainly seemed to know his business. So yeah, great stuff. Love it. Really smart advice. We'll talk briefly in the next episode about how to manage remotely, sort of cliff notes for each one. Just quickly give you a chance to say what sort of stuff you do for Amazon sellers around helping them with their listings and titles and things like that.
Yeah, so Trivium is a advertising partial team. We basically integrate with your team, help you run ads. We also do SEO, title and bullet points SEO optimization. So if your products aren't don't have the right keywords to rank them, it'll hurt the PPC, it'll hurt organic ranking, all this stuff. So we use Data Dive to optimize the title and the bullet points, and we just do it in a very data driven way. But that's what we do. My goal is to put as much education as value out there. I actually just created Trivium Tribe, which is paid Slack consulting for the people who can't like afford, to hire consultants all the time or all this stuff. I brought in my entire team in the Slack. We have consultants in the Slack. We have agency partners who basically are experts. It's not just like, sales. It's just only experts that can answer questions. And then for $200 a month, you join, you can ask any questions, you get access to our SOPs and sheets and templates. And basically my goal is to help people, go from the starter mark to okay, now we can afford an agency and delegate, and then, go working on the business.
Nice, I like that a lot. And the sort of thing we've been talking about today would be a great halfway house example, wouldn't it? So, Mina, always always amazed by your energy and the speed that you implement stuff. Whenever we talk too infrequently, you built an entire business in between the conversations. So really great to talk to you. We're going to talk about managing remotely in the next episode. For now, just remains to say thank you so much, Mina Elias of Trivium. Peace out. Absolutely. Good. Right. Hiring remotely in 25 minutes or less.
Okay.
You good? You see okay?
Yeah, my camera was blurry. Now it's good. Finally.
Okay, fine. I wonder wonder what this meant.
It's a piece of shit
Mysterious.
camera. I'm changing it, I promise.
Yeah, don't worry. My camera seems to not be connected to my computer, so oh, I touched the. There you go. Shouldn't have touched the lead, should
Oh
I?
yeah,
No,
I
bless
saw
you.
it
Yeah,
say like
blanked out.
USB error or something like that. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah. It's just modern Macs with their USB Cs. No, nothing else has USB Cs yet. Anyway, right, here we go. Let's do the next one. Ladles and jelly spoons, boys and girls, welcome back to the 10K Collective podcast for 6, 7, and 8 figure Amazon sellers. Today we are talking with Mina Elias of Trivium and also founder of MMA Nutrition. So, double trouble here. He's got the background of e commerce, business founding and running, also running an agency for business owners. And the main thing we're talking about today is how to manage remote workers. We talked in the last episode about how to hire them. And Mina had a fantastic process for that. So if you didn't hear that, please go and listen to that. You'll really thank me. And now we've got them. We're going to manage them. So Mina, welcome back to the show.
thank you for having me again in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, man, coming back straight back round for another visit. So,
Yeah.
okay, we talked about hiring people. Now we've got them. What do we do? You got somebody, you're paying them. What's the next step?
Okay, so like there's a few ways to manage. There's a lot of software out there. There you have Asana, you have this, you have that. And I want to basically now as a really a bigger and more advanced agency, we use Notion. And Notion is great because it has the opportunity to be a task management platform. It has the opportunity to be your learning management system, your standard operating procedures, all of that good stuff. But if I'm starting out simple, when I first started, I needed one hub for my standard operating procedures. I used Google Sheets. You could do that. You can use any of the software like Podia, for example, where I have a course. I have like a PPC course on there, but you can build a course, quote unquote course, and it can just be all of the videos for all of your different departments. The way that I would work it is understand what the different departments in your company are. So if you are an e-commerce brand, there is the supply chain department, which consists of ordering materials, the inspection, the freight forwarding, getting the stuff all the way to Amazon. You have the finance side, which are basically accepting money, paying POs, doing profit and loss sheets, things like that, cash flow projections. Then you have the e-commerce management, so managing the platform where you're selling. Then you have like marketing. If you're on Amazon, you're just doing Amazon PPC. If you're off of Amazon, maybe you're doing Facebook ads, Google ads, whatever. You have the marketing side, and you have management and admin. That's own division of managing people, or for administrative, it's just like the little mundane stuff that people have to do. And once that all of the divisions are broken up, I would go into each division and I would create a flow for any major process. So when we talk about supply chain, there's a flow, and I love to use Lucidchart for this. Lucidchart is basically like somewhere where you can do flow charts. You can put boxes, arrows, things like that. You can have links from the box to like a Google Sheet or a website or something. And let's say it's like my supply chain. So the first process is like ordering, like reordering. And so the reordering process is we're going to look at how much like our sales velocity is on Amazon. We're going to look at how much inventory we have. We're going to do a calculation of how much we need to order. We're going to fill out this PO template. We're going to check the last PO number. We're going to add one. We're going to put this pricing list on the pricing sheet. We're going to send this PO to the manufacturer. We're going to wait until he confirms and sends a invoice. We're going to confirm that we sent the invoice. We're going to follow up in X amount of weeks. And then once he says that, we're going to schedule the inspection. And so that's a flow, right? And visualizing that flow using Lucidchart. Some people use Miro, M-I-R-O too as well. I like Lucid better, but visualize the flow. And once you have these visualized flows, they should all be attached to a standard operating procedure. And so you have your company departments. Each department has its flows. You have a reordering flow. You have a paying out people flow. You have a paying out salaries flow. You have whatever it is. And in each of these flows, you have the standard operating procedures. And For me, I built all of my standard operating procedures. I like did a screen share using OBS screen recorder. I saved it on my Google Drive, and then I had a like a Google sheet, and it just had a list of all of the videos as a glossary. So it was the name of the video, and a link to the video, and there was like what department it's under. And so for me, I was able to filter pretty easily based on the department. Here's what the task is, and I can just like show one department and see what the video is, and it was all linked. So everything was always linked to that Google Drive video, and that's so you need those two things to kind of have your business running in a flow. Now the
Nice.
third,
I
huh?
like that. I was just going to say, just quick reflection. I've Lucidchart and Miro are both very good. Miro's sort of a fairly free-form whiteboard, isn't it? You could do lots of different things. Lucidchart is much more geared to flow charts, which I've used both tools. I think they're really, really nice. And yeah, I'm a big user of G Drive as well. There's a really nice app, by the way, called Screencastify. I should say it's a Chrome extension where you can
Yeah.
just grab videos and go straight into your Google Drive. So that's kind of for the people in the early stages, are kind of quick, and I think it's free as well. So just a quick
Yeah,
one there.
I love things like that. I love like Screencaster. There's also an app called Scribe. So as you're
Oh
recording
yeah.
that video, it's actually giving you step-by-step screenshots. So you record the video, and when you go to Scribe, there's the video, and then there is, do this, click here, click there, do this, do that, and it just documents it as screenshots. So it's even easier to follow, because usually we have standard operating procedures, and then we get them converted into SOPs that are like a line and then a screenshot with an arrow, a line, a screenshot with an arrow. So if someone wants to follow along, they can follow up easily without having to constantly watch the entire video.
Yeah, that's
And so,
really good because that is very, very time consuming. So it's an excellent point. So I interrupted you. So we have the flow, we got the SOP. What's next?
yeah, so now we have the flow, we have the SOPs, we have everything. Now the final thing that you need is an employee like task management software. What I used to love to use is Trello. Trello is super, super simple. And I had every single employee. This is perfect for solopreneurs, right? Because solopreneurs aren't having to manage so many different people. You're managing one, two, three, four people. And what I would do is each employee would have a board, and I would go to the employee's board, and there would be a to do, in progress, ready to review, and then completed, and other resources. And every time I wanted this employee to do something, I would say, I'm going to tell you to do this thing. You are going to ask me, what's the deadline? And, when do you need it by? And how much of a priority this is. Once I tell you, you're then going to go create the card in your Trello board, put it in to do, send me a screenshot that it's done. And so every single time I would say, hey, I want you to do this thing. They would, go ahead, create the card, and they put it in their to-do list. And every morning, the only thing the employee had to do is log in, look at their to-do list, move whatever they're working on to in progress. And at any point in time, I could log in, see all of my employees and what they were doing. This obviously doesn't scale as easily because once you have a lot of employees, it becomes a little bit more difficult. We have different ways now to do it in Notion. But the other thing is for most like first, second, third employees, they will be doing a lot of repetitive stuff. So one of the things that you can do is create a card that's a checklist in Trello and make it daily recurring. So every single day, that card will pop up again with a new date. And so basically, let's say my employee has to check my email, let me know if there's any invoices to be paid, call, remind me to call my mom. And I'm just like giving an easy example, and then check how many sessions my listing got that day. She would get this card in the morning, and it would say, this is the daily checklist of today's date, August 4th. She would go in, as she did things, she would mark them off. Once they were done, she would move the card to completed. And then after that, the next day, she would find a new card over there. And that's how I managed my employees. Every single task was always linked, if needed to be linked to an SOP. Any recurring tasks from the checklist, they were all linked to the SOP. So if anyone ever needed to do anything, they could always just very simply refer, say, here's the task that I need to do, and here's the SOP. They would click on the task, it would show them exactly how to do it if they ever forgot. And that's how I used to manage people. It was very, very easy for me to know what people were doing. And it kind of worked in the way where I just looked at what I had to do every single day, and I would delegate. And but having the department view and understanding what's the critical path of your business. If you guys haven't heard of this book, my consultant recently introduced me to it. It's called Systemology. It's the system of creating systems. But basically, there's something called a CCF, a critical client flow, and it's just the bare minimum steps that are required to make your business run. It's documented. Each one, there's a department, and then there's the processes under there. And this makes it very easy because you understand what the flow of work is. You understand what everything that needs to be done to just keep your business running, and you can assign it to people, and you can watch them. If it's a new task, watch it go on their to-do list, on their yeah, to-do list. And if it's a recurring task, you can watch it go on their daily checklist, and monitor things. And that's essentially how I was able to manage the team. And then, I mean, if you want, we can comment on how I managed the team as we grew.
Certainly, be good to hear briefly about that. So just quickly, do you think it's important to organize things into departments even when there's just one more person and you? Is it important to do?
It's not I wouldn't say it's not important. It's not necessary. It's not going to hold you back from anything, but it is good for you. It's good for you because as you build the departments, and as you have that, and as the business grows, it's growing on a good foundation. For me, I didn't have that built out. All it was I had all of the SOPs somewhere, I had all of the business flows somewhere, and I would just simply delegate. But then there was a time where I had to buckle down for 2-3 weeks, in a room, closed window, like, closed blinds, and just said, okay, I have to rebuild this entire thing and build it in a more, business way, where there's different departments and different flows per department, and how the departments communicate and who depends on what, and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I guess what you're saying is that you might as well start that from the beginning because it's not that much extra work, whereas
Yeah.
sorting out
Well,
the mess is always a lot more work than sorting it out. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, yes. So tell us about scaling. Obviously, so you got to what, about 35 employees, something like that now. So that's what's the path between say 5 and 35 employees in terms of what changes in terms of how you manage people.
So what changes is you are probably going to hit a capacity at 6 direct reports. You can stretch your limit like I did to 8 or 9 or maybe 10 direct reports, but you're going to feel like you're being pulled apart by way too many people. And so the first thing is to anticipate that growth. So anticipating that growth, and creating an org structure. When I created an org structure, again, I listed all of the departments and I placed where the people were in the departments. And then, wherever I said, okay, this person needs to directly report to me, this person, and I had to basically choose 6, and I chose only 6 people that were directly going to report to me. And then those 6 people, I had to eliminate one because everyone that was beyond that 6th person, there needed to be a manager, and that middle manager was going to report to me, and then those people were going to report to the middle manager. And so that's kind of like the biggest first step, is to start building out the org chart. Now, with the org chart, the second thing is everyone who's not your direct report, they need to understand what the goals and KPIs for their division is. And so every quarter we sit down and we have a quarterly planning meeting, and it's me and all of my direct reports. Sometimes we include other people from the business, but it's generally just me and my direct reports. And we list every single piece of the business, for the agency, or like, okay, branding and brand awareness and marketing, lead flow, sales, agreements and things like that. Employees, like employee management, the PPC team, like technology that we're using, consulting, like all of the different pieces of the business. And we started setting goals, and I would say, here's the goals and here's the KPIs that I want to see. We're here, we need to get to here. And then I would just push this off to the middle manager, and I would say, it's on you now to achieve it. If you need anything from me, let me know. But instead of becoming a task manager, I became a goal manager. And I didn't care what they did in their departments. What I cared was about the end result. And we would meet frequently, and I'd say, give me an update on the end result, like give me your progress bar. And if I noticed, like, for example, person X from the technology team, they weren't really making progress on that. I would say, let's talk about it. Why aren't we making progress on this front? And then I would use my brain power, my resources, whatever, to diagnose and try and help them push that department. But it moved really away from task management, because we no longer manage tasks, because all of the tasks that we need to be managed have SOPs, and all of the SOPs have KPIs. And now it became more about people managing, and people managing people, and training the people who manage the people, which is kind of very interesting. But I never thought I would have to do it. But when I started hiring managers, I realized that they were a manager, but they weren't the best manager. And no, because it takes many years and a lot of experience to become the best manager. So I realized I also have to be training these managers on how to manage, and guiding them and helping them. So that's what it's been like, going from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people to 35 people. It becomes a lot more kind of believing in your department system, believing in your organizational chart, believing in your middle managers. But then, because a lot of people will say, having like these different departments, what if you need someone to do here? Everyone understands. I say this in the town hall meeting, but everyone understands. I say your job description, the first sentence of your job description is, you will do whatever it takes. Like, that's it. Like, that's your job description. You may be in the finance department. If you see something that needs to get fixed and you don't say anything, that's on you, because your job is to do whatever it takes to make this company grow and succeed. It's not just we're not corporate. We're not like, I'm sorry, I can't touch this. Mark has to sign off, and oh, Mark says, well, Lucy needs to give us a signature for this. Like, it's not like this. It's like, everyone is responsible for the growth of this company. Everyone lives here. Everyone is responsible for cleaning up. Even if this is outside your department, you don't need to overstep. You can always just bring it up and say, hey, I saw this, is this being handled? And if it isn't, then, great, you saved the day. If it is, no harm done.
Amazing. So this really brings us to a huge area. So let's just touch on this, which is kind of, I guess, corporate cultural. Why is it great to be working for Mina, and why would people work for you? Now, we kind of didn't deal with that when it came to the onboarding. You mentioned that you're a fantastic person who worked for you, for your own a few ideas. So that's part of how to attract people to hire you, to get hired by you, sorry. But in the end, I guess it needs to come down to it actually being true, or you won't retain people. So how do you make your business the best place you can make it to live in and work in? Is it because of giving people autonomy? I mean, what are the things do you think that help to keep your staff?
This is a great question. And a lot of it stems from being the opposite of all of the negative things that happened to me when I was a 9 to 5 employee. So a few things, for example, I was a very, very, very high performer in my last job. And I showed up one day at 7:05, and my boss says, if you're late again, we're going to take those minutes out of your personal time off. This is someone whose job, I'm not working on a line, right? Like screwing caps on the line. Anyways, I show up into work, you get ready, you have whatever, your coffee, your tea, all this stuff, and then you produce. And to them, it didn't matter that I was producing. What mattered was that I was there. And this is, a very old school, like insecure point of view of having employees. Now, the second thing was, the person next to me was making $40,000 more a year as a salary, by just existing and living more, not by being a higher performer, or by being more driven and achieving more results in whatever his work was. It was simply because of years. And then I was completely turned off by the pay for experience model versus the pay for performance model. Yes, of course, for someone who's more experienced, you're going to pay a little bit more money. But if the person next to him is outperforming him, that person is going to leave the company, and I'm going to give that person that's outperforming that salary, because it's not about experience, it's not about years, it's about performance. It's about who's going to generate the highest amount of revenue to the business. So things like that, things like being flexible. Sometimes it's just as simple as, hey, I need to take my sister to the doctor. No problem. I'll make up the time. No, don't worry about making up the time. Just make sure that the work is being done. And that is such a relief for people who have crazy lives. We all have crazy lives. No one wants to feel like it's like very difficult to take someone just so their health can be checked. No one wants to feel like their car broke down and to rub salt on the injury or whatever, salt on the wound, whatever it's called, to say, well, you have to take time off from your work so you can go fix your car, which is already causing you stress because it's a financial burden. So it's all of these small things, not caring about when people work. I don't care how long people work or when people work. I care about work getting done, because I know, as Mina, I used to show up to the office 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. and I would finish my work in the first 3-4 hours of the day. I would eat lunch and then I would just chill, because that's what it was. Everyone after lunch was like in like a post lunch comatose. And I was like, okay, fine. I mean, I already performed really well in the morning. There's no point of me continuing. And so if I had the autonomy to say, I'm going to come into work, I'm going to work for 4 hours, I'm going to get everything done, and I'm going to leave or whatever, or I just doing it from home, I would have been so much happier. I would have stayed much longer. And then the final one is recognition and feeling that I'm important, and feeling that I'm cared about in the business and being invested in. And so for that, I think it's just as simple as telling people you appreciate them. It's just as simple as showing people that you will reward them based on how hard they work. If someone works really hard, say, good job, here's a bonus for your hard work. And not only that, if they come to you and they want a raise, and maybe you feel like it's a little bit premature, you work a plan with them. Most bosses will just say, no, it's not the right time, let's revisit this in 6 months. What I do is, if anyone ever comes to me, asks for a raise, I say, okay, cool, what are you going to do to earn that raise? Like, how can you improve the business enough to validate that raise? If you want, let's say, a $2,000 a year raise, $5,000 a year raise, that's cool. What are you going to do to generate the company $15,000 additionally this year? If you can show me that, and if you can follow through, you more than deserve that. And those are all of the things that make it amazing to work here. We also push a lot of initiatives. We have like a bonus for the people that hit the gym the most and send a picture from the gym. And we have a very positive culture. And I reinforce that culture. I have zero tolerance to anyone who brings any negativity into the culture. They're immediately removed from the company, and that keeps everyone happy. That keeps everyone relaxed. I operated at around an 80% capacity, and so none of my employees really have to feel like they're pushing the limits. Sometimes shit will happen, and they have to push the limit from 80 to 100, 110. But generally, everyone gets about 20% of their capacity free to come up with new things, free to innovate, free to just relax, because when we need you, you're there. And so we don't want to need you all the time. We don't want you to be always operating at 100%, and then when we need you, it's 130%. We want you to be relaxed, and then when we really need you, you're operating at 100, 110%. And through that short blast, you get us through the finish line, and we're back to operating where everyone, because this is a third of your life, 8 hours of the day that you're spending doing something. So you might as well enjoy what you're doing, and not feel like you're enslaved in a prison.
Wow. If only all employers were as positive as that. Amazing stuff. I mean, I feel kind of ashamed of my inadequacies as a manager now, and also it kind of inspired and ashamed. So hopefully, very motivated to go and change, and I hope that the people who are listening feel the same way. So I know you got to dash to another meeting, so I just want to say big thank you for sharing so much wisdom in such a short time.
My pleasure. I hope this helps a lot of people.
Great, folks. So that's us done with today. Don't forget to put your comments or questions for Mina. And once again, Mina, thanks for coming on live with us as well.
My pleasure. If anyone has questions, feel free to shoot them over. I'll answer them.